Hi everyone, it's Alyssa and this is Always Cinema Chic, the place that encourages you to go out, get dressed up, and watch a movie. So today I am just going to continue my analysis of Blade Runner 2049. I will link the first video right up here. This video is really going to focus on the symbolism of the eyes, the color palette, and the use of water throughout the film. Now, once again, this video is going to have a ton of spoilers, so if you have not seen the film yet, please go out, watch the movie, then come back and watch this video. So with that said, we're going to dive straight back in and start talking about the symbolism of the eyes, which was so incredibly prevalent in the original film, and once again it just takes center stage. So the first image that we get in the film is that of an eye, and when we think of eyes, we usually think of them as the windows into our soul. So if the replicants have eyes, I think we can safely assume that the replicants have souls. We can also look at the eyes in terms of our perception of reality as well as our identity. But in this film, what I think is really interesting to focus on is who doesn't have eyes. And to me, the most obvious character would be Neander Wallace. So Wallace is both literally and metaphorically blind to the atrocities that he is committing. Now, Neander literally means new man, and that's exactly what he's creating. He wants a breed of new man so that he can be their god and also make a bunch of money from creating them. So he calls his replicants his angels, and yet he has no problem destroying his creations when they do not serve his purpose, such as the female replicant who could not reproduce, or the new version of Rachel. Neander's notion is that in order to advance the human race, our advancement always has to come on the backs of slaves. Why doesn't he think humans should be the ones to rebuild the earth and off-world since we hurt the planet? And it's pure selfishness on the part of Wallace and the humans to create and enslave replicants to fix what we broke. We also see that Freyja is missing an eye, but in this case it really represents her taking back her own identity. So the replicants are basically identified by a number that's on their right eye, and by cutting out her own eye, she's basically taking control back of her own identity and regaining her freedom. The name Freya is actually Norse, and it means goddess of love and fertility, and that really is her purpose in the film. It's to take care of the baby girl. But I think part of the problem with Freyja is because she only has one eye, she's really transfixed on this one singular vision of the cause and getting everyone together and the rebellion, and there could be some downsides to that because she never takes into account the individual. She is always very much focused on the cause. So we also get shots of Love's eyes as she orders attacks on the San Diego wasteland so that Kay can try to find the child of the replicants. This is one of the first moments where she begins to see herself as the god of the replicants. Neander clearly favors Love above all of the other replicants because he gives her a name. But by giving her a name, he actually gives her this newfound kind of identity, and that's what begins her on her journey into wanting to be the greatest of all the replicants, and perhaps even surpassing Wallace. And I will get more to that point later. But there's also the huge emphasis of Kay and his eyes, and while they may not be of the extreme close-up variety, we still get so much insight into Kay's soul. So we often get imagery that associates Kay with an eye, such as when he takes a shower after killing Sapper. When Lieutenant Joshi tells Kay that he's not missing out on anything by not having a soul, I have to say that the focus on his eyes proves that he most certainly does have a soul. Gosling does most of his acting non-verbally in the film, and it's really through his eyes that we see the evolution of Kay. This film is all about identity. It's about rejecting your past identity and discovering who you really are. And that's not just the case for Kay. That's the case for all of the replicants, because once they know that they can create life and that they can love each other, then they really can't be treated as subhuman anymore. So next I want to move on to the color palette. Now I had said in the previous video that the natural green is used sparingly but purposefully in the film. It's usually associated with Anna, who represents everything that is natural in the world. But when you're watching the movie, I think it's pretty obvious that the two primary colors are that kind of murky orange and that deep saturated blue. So I think the orange really represents a kind of hell for characters. It represents lies and deceit, everything that is the worst in humanity. Whereas the blue is kind of like a metaphorical heaven, as that usually represents knowledge, power, integrity, things like that. And the city is constantly lit in this sort of deep, saturated neon blue. So since we only see the general population lit in blue, perhaps that means that we all have the capability for great insight and knowledge. However, the gray interior of the buildings showcases both the humans and replicants' gray interior that has not yet been enlightened. So the Wallace Corporation is always lit in deep oranges, as is the devastated Las Vegas after a dirty bomb was set off. To me, these images all show the worst that humanity has to offer. This is what happens when we steer clear of the natural path. So then you can also contrast this with scenes like Joy being able to go outside for the first time and experience that sensation of rain falling. It's here that she revels in the physical sensation, and the water metaphorically provides a rebirth as she's now able to escape from her interior prison and experience a piece of the outdoors and what it means to be human. The water imagery is absolutely abundant in this movie. Both the humans and the replicants are in desperate need of a rebirth, and they really need to regain or gain their humanity. So water often represents a rebirth or knowledge, but there are so many different types of water that are used in the film. So first, there's a lot of rain obviously throughout the movie. There's also the still water that has kind of the reflection on the walls, and then there is the reservoir that just starts bursting water, and then the use of snow. So just as in the first film, rain and darkness permeates LA, and it almost seems as if the planet is crying from all the hurt that we've caused it. In an early scene, we see Lieutenant Joshi telling Kay that the knowledge of a replicant born from replicants will break the world, and we see rain cascading from outside the window. This newfound knowledge will absolutely change the planet in every way. Lieutenant Joshi is so concerned with the wall coming down between the replicants and the humans, but I just kept thinking, well, what if it did? The Earth is clearly in need of a kind of rebirth and a rejuvenation. And if the humans and the replicants actually treated each other as equals and maybe worked together, then perhaps the planet would actually be able to be saved. There's also the still water that's always associated or often associated with the Wallace Corporation. So here we get the outrageous set design where water surrounds a cement floor that is both beautiful and eerie as we see the reflection of the water on the walls. I believe this water imagery is connected to being in the womb, so it's literally a gestation period. And this makes sense because this is where the replicants are created. And when we get to see one born, we are constantly presented with water imagery. In addition, when Kay is rescued by both Frisia and Mariette, and they take him in battered and bruised, they take him to this kind of underground sort of grayish environment, but there's water surrounding them there too. And if you look, there's actually the rippling water reflection that's on the left-hand side of the screen. And it's during the scene that he actually finds out that he's not the child of Deckard and Anna. And hence this is a gestation period for him, because really he has to figure out what it is that he wants to do. So he can go on the side of the rebellion and help them, or he can just go back to the simple way that his life actually used to be. Then there's also two really important scenes by the reservoir. So the first one is when Kay first believes that he actually can be the child of a replicant. And once he truly starts to challenge his identity and he allows himself to go on this journey of self-knowledge, we then see the reservoirs exploding with water. The dam has been released and he will never go back to the way he was. The last fight sequence between Joe and Love also takes place by the reservoir, and this is the moment where he decidedly takes action and rescues Deckard. So the water, which is always associated with blue, is literally bursting at this moment because he truly has gained a sense of his identity and his humanity all at the same time. So what's brilliant about this scene is that Love truly starts to mimic her master. While at first she cries when she sees Wallace kill a newborn replicant who cannot procreate, she now has lost all empathy and has taken on the role of her creator by stabbing Joe in the same way that Wallace stabs and kills his creation. She then kisses him when she believes that he's dying, just in the same way that Wallace kisses his creation as she falls to the floor. And when she leaves Joe in the water, she just starts screaming at him that she's the best replicant of all. Now, Wallace always told her that she was his favorite angel, and this is when I started to think maybe Love actually represents Lucifer, because God always thought that Lucifer was his favorite angel until Lucifer decided that she actually wanted to become better than God. So Love should not be able to lie to any humans, especially Wallace. Yet Love tells Lieutenant Joshi that she will kill her and lie to Wallace by stating that Lieutenant Joshi tried to kill her first. Even though she's programmed to obey, she doesn't. She wants to be better than God, or Wallace in this case. While I don't believe that Wallace necessarily represents God, I do believe that he represents someone with a God complex, and he wields his power and his new religion of enslavement and financial profit as a way of controlling not only the replicants, but the humans as well. And as a result, Love becomes the first fallen angel. During that fight sequence, Love is bathed in orange light. Thanks for catching that one, Olivia. And Joe is primarily lit in blue. So when Joe emerges again from the water as a new man with a pure and true identity, he kills Love by drowning her. It's almost as if the devil has died and both replicants and humans have the ability to gain some deeper sense of knowledge and purpose. And then there's the snow in the last images of the movie. And to me, these were really some of the most meaningful and beautiful shots in the whole film. So while you have the bursting reservoir and the rain, it's kind of a reminder of the constant influx of knowledge and transformation of the characters, and it's almost really violent seeming. But then you contrast that with the snow, which has a real gentleness, and this really represents the purity and awareness that Joe has undergone through the course of his journey. So according to Meaningful Life, which discusses the symbolic meaning of snow and water, it states, "Snow can represent heaven speaking to us through purity, speaking to us gently and gradually on our terms. Snow is the intermediary stage between heaven and earth." Joe has now found meaning in his life, and even though he knows that he must die, he still learns something about his existence and is a pure soul who not only died for a cause, but also gains this kind of personal enlightenment. And I felt like that last scene was just so beautiful visually and emotionally. So you can certainly contrast this with the last scene from the previous film when Batty feels like his life and death were all for nothing and that he'll soon be forgotten like tears in the rain. When Joe lays back on the steps, simply feeling the snow on his hands, he finally has a connection with a higher power or simply himself. He acknowledges that his life had a purpose and that Wallace is simply a false god who makes the replicants believe that they are nothing more than slaves. They accept it because they've been taught it. But now Joe connects to his life's purpose and truly acknowledges the humanity within. Now this leaves us with a much more uplifting message than the previous film, because ultimately we're supposed to believe in the power within ourselves. And that's really where I'm going to end this analysis. This is really one of my favorite films of all time. Now that I've just spent so much time with it, I would love if you could leave a comment below so that we can all start discussing this movie. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I had such a great time making this. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And remember, it is always in fashion to go out, get dressed up, and make it a cinema chic night. Bye guys!